So, Babymonster. If you're unaware, YG Entertainment has made official plans to debut another girl group. This will be the first girl group after Blackpink 7 years later. I don't think they'll be in the 4th generation. I think they'll be in the 5th generation. The distinction between the two is not pretty clear. But irrespective of that, they have been having this kind of survival show. I think that's what you can call it. It's definitely not the budget that they give their boy groups for survival shows, let's say that. But they have been having a survival show-esque show called Babymonster: The Last Evaluation, being showcased on YouTube, in which they have been showing the 7 members performing, practicing, interacting, individual stages, group stages, essentially what the last evaluation of a group looks like before it's been finalized. Now, the show has been going on for about a few weeks now. I think it started in February. They've had 7 to 8 episodes out, and they have showed us everything that they can, and left with the information that on the 12th of May they will be introducing the final lineup of the group. Now, the group has been shown to have 7 members, or 7 trainees I should say, who have been training for debuting in the group. But in the last episode, YG himself said that they don't plan to introduce more than 5 members into the final lineup, which is again 1 more than I thought they would do. They're notorious for their girl groups having 4 members with both 21 and Blackpink, so I thought they would continue that trend. But it seems like they're going to be making a 5-member group out of these 7 members. Before I come to the discussion about who those 5 members will be and what the group's future is going to be, I think it's important to talk about how messed up their situation is altogether. Starting off with the fact that they are all except one of them are minors. There is 1 member who is 21 and everyone else is 17 and below, the youngest being 13 at the beginning of the year and turned 14 in the month of February or March if I'm not mistaken. So they are continuing on with the trend of minors in K-pop, which is pretty surprising, especially for them. I mean, you would expect exploitative nonsense like this from them, but historically speaking, they are one of the companies, especially for their girl groups, that didn't have minors. All of the 21 members were adults when they debuted. All of the Blackpink members were adults when they debuted. Granted, they had been training for 4 or 5 years at the time, so they did start off their journey as younger individuals, but when they were introduced to the public, they were all adults. So you'd expected something similar, or the trend for them to be on those lines. Also taking into consideration how their groups do more mature girl crush adjacent concepts. But no, they have also fallen prey of the K-pop trend right now of making groups with children. And I know every time this conversation comes up, everyone always talks about the fact that, oh, they've always been minors in group, and you know, they'll talk about Taemin and Shinee, they'll talk about Crystal and FX, they will talk about IU, they will talk about Jungkook. And the thing that baffles me is that they mention all of these idols, and all of these idols have regularly talked about how horrible it was to be a minor in the K-pop industry. They've all said that if they had the opportunity to, they would wait a few years before they debuted in the industry. And not just the ones that I mentioned. I can't name a single person who has been asked, oh, would you have waited a few years if you had the opportunity to debut? And they've said no. Not a single person. Because everyone feels the same way about the situation. Everyone wishes that they would have waited for a little while so that they could have gained more experience, lived life a little before they debuted, and just dedicated their life to their career. With this issue, there are also some very specific issues that we've already seen with the group. One being, one of the members, Asa, she is again 17. She covered a very inappropriate song with pretty inappropriate lyrics. I think the song's called Look Alive. You can see it for yourself on the screen. It does have some inappropriate lyrics to it. The fact that the company allowed her to cover this song is a little bit of a red flag. There's also a situation in which where the behind the scenes footage for some of the interactions between the girls, I think it's their dorm, I'm not sure, it looks like their dorm where they're currently residing, and we were seeing some behind the scenes footage of it, and we could notice that some of the cameras that were showing footage of them were placed in their bathrooms, and it would get pretty prominent footage of them bathing or in other exposed situations. So that's that. I mean, it's not okay to film an adult in a bathroom in itself, but to film children in bathrooms is just horrible. Aside from this glaringly obvious problem about minors being in the group, they have also this whole issue with Blackpink. So YG Entertainment's musical style is pretty distinct, right? They do this hip-hop adjacent pop music for most of their girl groups. So with Blackpink not having any confirmation, right? We don't know if they will continue or they won't continue under the entertainment agency. Let's say they do continue. How would that work? Would you have two groups in the market with the same sound? Or would you have two groups in the market with similar sounds? I'm thinking about it from a marketing point of view. Why would someone listen to Babymonster, a new group with a sound that Blackpink has already established as their own? So there will be a lot of issues depending on if Blackpink stays in the company, and even bigger issue if they leave, because then these children will be responsible for being the biggest bread earners for the company, which is a lot worse if you ask me. So there are a lot of issues regarding that. There is also the most obvious of issues about how someone like YG himself is allowed to be around children, especially young women, after knowing that he was involved in the Burning Sun scandal. I mean, that is just disgusting to think that a man who partook in one of the biggest sex scandals to come out of Korea is now involved in creating a group around minors. So there are just lots of red flags with the group. And there is also this whole delayed debut that they're planning. Like, of course, the whole conversation of Babymonster has been around for like 2-3 years at this point of time, but the members were introduced in the early part of the year. So I feel like for 4 months they've already delayed so much of their debut, and I can see that a lot of people online are bored. I mean, I'm bored myself. I think I was a lot more invested to check out what would come out of the group early on in the year than I am now. So that's that. But the whole situation with them is its own problem. Coming back to the members and who I personally think might end up debuting. Well, if you look at it solely from the point of semantics, right? It's a K-pop group. They want to have a majority Korean members. So if we're going with 5 out of 7, I think the 3 Korean members all make it. And then you have 1 Thai member and 1 Japanese member. So that will give you a good 5. But if we're to take talent into consideration, I think the 2 Japanese members are the most talented of the 7. Overall talent, I mean. There are, standout members altogether. But I think if we're talking about overall talent, the two Japanese members are the most talented. So I think they, along with two other Korean members and then one Thai member, should make it. Let's talk about the obvious. I think Ion is pretty much set to debut. She might just even be the leader of the group, if I'm not mistaken. I think she does stand out the most, or is made to stand out the most. She does have good vocal talent, she does have good rapping talent. Although I happen to have this problem with not just her vocals, but her Chiquita, even to some extent Haram, about how they sound like children. Now it could be because they're children covering adult songs, so maybe that's why they sound like children to me. If they have music that is tailor-made to them and suits their vocal range the best, maybe it won't be this much of an issue. But yeah, right now listening to them, it sounds like children singing, and that's really off-putting to me. But keeping that aspect aside, I think Ion is pretty much set to debut. If we're doing the two Japanese members, because I think they are the most talented, both Ruka and Asa are also in. That being said, I think amongst the remaining Korean members, that is Haram and Rora, I think Haram stands out more to me, so I think I would add her into the lineup. And then we come to the Thai members. Now, both the Thai members are pretty talented. I do see it in the way that they're doing the show, that the last evaluation, they have this bias towards Chiquita, where they are pushing her a lot more than all the other members. So I do think that they will pick her, but if I had to pick, I would pick Farida. I think obviously the age factor is one of the things, but also because I think she fits in better with the other members than Chiquita. Also keeping in mind the new laws that have come into K-pop about how minors are going to be restricted with the amount of time that they're allowed to work, and just the new laws and how much that could affect things. So I don't know if that will actually affect Chiquita. Knowing big three companies, I'm sure they will find ways around it, so I don't know how much that law is actually going to affect them. But if I had to look at it more rationally, I think the law would affect them, and they would choose Farida over Chiquita just because they can work more with someone who's 17 as compared to someone who's 13, 14. So I think that will be my choices for the lineup. I think Ahyeon, Haram, Farida, Ruka and Asa make a good 5-member group in my opinion. But I do think that the other members, I mean, they're so young. Even if YG decided to do a next group like 5 years later, they would still be considered just because of how young the members are. But we do know that the Black Label is also coming up with their own girl group, and I do think the members who don't make it into this group will definitely be considered for that group. The dynamic between the Black Label group and Babymonster, I feel, is going to be very similar to the dynamic between LE SSERAFIM and NewJeans. How they're two groups from the same company but under different sub-labels. So I do think if, say, Aurora doesn't make it or Chiquita doesn't make it in this group, they would be considered for the Black Label girl group as well. But yeah, that's what I think. These are the 5 members that stand out the most to me, and I think they could make a good lineup. But we won't know till the 12th of May, so we're gonna have to wait till then to figure it out, I guess.